I'm backing up my truck, I'm gonna hook it up, loading up my boat with all my gear. I've been working hard all week, trying to make ends meet, spending time wishing I was fishing. Well, Terry Wickstrom wants to take you fishing. Gather up your gear and come along. Well, Terry Wickstrom wants to take you fishing.
This is Terry Wickstrom. Join Karen Cullum, Greg Plaggio, and me as we take you to some of our favorite fishing spots from Colorado to Minnesota, the Arctic Circle to Central America and beyond, as we revisit episodes of Mountain States Fishing and Angling Adventures Television on the best of fishing with Terry Wickstrom.
Hey, we're out here today on Lon Hagler Reservoir. We're really just a few miles from where I live in Colorado. And you know, you see me travel all over the world and we fish these great fisheries, but everywhere people live, there's small lakes like this. And in Colorado, as in most of the mountain states, they're heavily stocked with small trout, both fall and in the spring. Lon Hagler is about a 200-acre reservoir. It's got several warm water species in it. It's got some bass, it's got some tiger muskie, it's got some perch. I think there might even be some walleyes, I'm not sure. But I did a little homework. I found out that they stocked this reservoir last fall with 25,000 catchable trout. Now those are going to have a little bit of growth since then, where it's middle of April right now. Water's about 50 degrees. I also found out they stocked them again recently, and there's been some good reports of people catching trout. Had to check out my new boat for the year, make sure everything was working. So I thought I'd get out here. You know what? I'm going to take a little spinner. We'll give you some close-ups of these later. This is a little Panther Martin spinner. Could be a Mepps, could be a Rooster Tail, many brands of these. And all I'm going to do is go and work the shoreline. Now you've seen me do that on shows before from shore, where we've actually just work the shoreline with these casting out. I'm going to do just the opposite. The water's about 50 degrees. I still think these trout are going to be fairly shallow. So we're going to use the electric motor and drift around and just cast to the shoreline. See if we can pick up a few of those small rainbows and just have a good time. We'll also, during the course of the day, talk about other ways you could catch these fish and other ways to fish for them. You know, I'm pretty fortunate. I get to travel the world and fish all these great fisheries, but I like to catch fish and I like to have fun. One just rose right there. And one of the things I found is that most people don't have a lot of time on the water. There's a lot of hardcore fishermen. They get to be very experienced anglers, and they're good at going to even a tough situation and pulling a few fish out. Most weekend anglers probably don't have a lot of sophisticated equipment, and they don't have a lot of time to learn techniques, although they do try. But a lot of times they just want to get out and catch some fish, and that's what this is about. Hey, I'm like that. I'm like a little kid, or maybe you've got a kid you want to take out. A lot of times I'm like a kid when I'm out like this. You just want to get out and catch some fish. And this is basic fishing. Little spinner, little ultralight rod, 4-pound test, because we don't expect to catch anything big. And we're just going to cast and work the shoreline, and then after we do that for a while, we'll probably put a little bait out, and we'll probably troll a little bit. But there's a lot of ways we can catch these fish. And you know what? It doesn't matter what size boat you've got. There's people out here in canoes, people in pontoon boats. I've got my big Crestliner boat out here. This is a wakeless lake. It's a small lake, about 200 acres, wakeless but quiet and full of fish. So let's see if we can't just get a few of these trout and have a good time today. There's one. All right, right away, almost right away, catching this little spinner. That didn't take long at all. There he is. Just a little one. You know, another thing about reservoirs like this, these are stocked as put and take reservoir. So there's nothing wrong with catching a few fish and taking them home. Here we go. Just, you know, we don't expect to catch. This is about what we expect to catch. 8 to 12-inch trout. Now there's probably some holdover fish in here. Get this up. He's those treble hooks. They like to put those treble hooks in me. These are. We'll get the hooks out. Oh. Stock trout. They're meant to take some home and eat some, especially you got a kid who you want to teach him fishing and get him excited about it. This one's a little bit small, so we're gonna let him go. But you know what, really, we'll probably end up keeping, you can keep 4, but I want to put him back in the water before he's all over me here. And You can keep 4 fish like that here in Colorado. I don't know what it's like where you live. Always check the regulations, because by the time this airs, regulations could have changed. But you saw how easy that was. We're just out here casting, little spinner. And there's no secret to fishing these either, these little spinners. All you do is really, it's a cast out and retrieve kind of thing. You just give them a flick out. I like to reel them a couple times fast, make sure the blades are turning, then it's a nice, steady, even retrieve. Bring them into the boat and just cover the water. These fish are cruising these shorelines. They're in here eating. Some of the rainbows that are mature are trying to spawn, even though they can't in here, and the water's cool enough where they're gonna be close to shore. You know, the neat thing about fishing these little fish from a boat like this is there's lots of ways you can do it. You can use your trolling motor like I've done part of the time and just move slowly around and cast. I even caught one. I was just dragging the spinner behind me, working the trolling motor slow, kind of trolling it, and I caught one. Or you can anchor. Maybe you don't have an electric trolling motor, so you can row out or take your gas motor out and just put the anchor out. So what I've done here is I've just dropped the anchor. It's a calm day. It won't take much to hold, so that I can sit. I caught 2 or 3 right in this little area as I was working back and forth, so I thought, why not just anchor right here and cast for a while? If I don't catch any after a while, well, then I'll move. I'll either use the trolling motor or I'll anchor up in a new spot. The neat thing about anchoring too, and we'll show you that later, is that these fish, there's lots of ways to catch them. You could probably catch them with some bait. Oh, there's a big wake. Something just swirled under the water, something big there. You could probably catch them with some bait under a bobber too. Minnows would be good. The new nitro bait from Eagle Claw would be very good. And if you got some kids with you that maybe aren't as adept at casting, you can anchor up and you could throw the little spinner or a little other little lure, and if the kids don't want to throw a lure, you could have them fish with a bobber. So just lots of ways to fish for these fish. There's another one. Oh, he's hung up somewhere. There he comes. We're fishing really shallow and there's brush here, and he got caught in that brush. There he goes. Now they're the same size as the other one, carbon copy. There he goes. This is only 4-pound test, but he's not a very big fish. But you know what? He's not that much bigger than the other one, but I'm gonna throw this one in a live well. I'm gonna keep my 4 today. Another thing about this, because it's a put and take reservoir, and there's nothing wrong with harvesting. You've seen me fish pristine rivers and areas where there's natural recurring fisheries that were very fragile, and we have to release those fish in order so that that fishery exists for people. Or you'll never see me keep large fish unless the fish is injured or it's a special circumstance, because those large fish are the genetics that make these lakes go. But in these warm water lakes like Lon Hagler, these are put and take lakes. Very few of these fish are going to survive long term in this reservoir anyway. Thousands of them are in stock just so you can take some home and eat them. And I tell you what, they taste really good. And we'll get the hook on them without getting it in me if I can. There we go. And this one's going in the live well. And when we're fishing, we'll get a couple of his brothers and we'll go home and we'll have we'll have a little fish fry. Lots of bug activity right now. There's lots of fish surfacing, taking bugs. If I had a fly rod with, I'll bet you I could hook up right away in a fly rod too. Just be an awesome way. Just a little 4-weight fly rod for these fish. There's bugs on the water. I can't tell what they are. I haven't seen them up close enough, but there's fish. There's a fish. I guess they'll still hit lures too, though. Another one on the spinner. Here we go. Ooh, it's a nice one. Oh, you know, a nice one. It's about the size of the others. I tell you what, they're ornery little fish, though. And that's the neat thing about fishing with this ultralight and 4-pound test and a little tiny rod, is they pull like crazy, and you still get some fight out of them and have a good time. That's a nice size one. This is another one for the live well. We're getting close to dinner, folks. Nice, beautiful fish. And they're stalker fish. They're stalker-sized fish, but they're beautiful fish. They're strong. They've been in here for a while. They fight like crazy. And it's just constant action. That's what's great about it. You come out here, I'm like a 12-year-old kid. I'm coming out here. It's one of the first trips of early spring. I'm out here having a good time, and you can come out here and do the same thing without any special gear, any special hardware. And I'm sure there's a lake. If you don't live by Lon Hagler, there's a lake close to you where you can do this. Let's get him in live. We'll get some more. You know, out here I got several rods rigged. I showed you the little spinner I was using. Trying something different. I love to, one of the things about fishing like this, it's going to be easy fishing and I get to play around a little bit. I have a little crankbait. It could be a Rapala. This one happens to be a Frenzy, but there's many, many models. Just little minnow-shaped baits. A lot of times you get a bigger fish doing this sometimes. So I'm going to play around. And there's some fish activity in here. There's other bass and things in here too. And by the way, those little spinners are great for all species, but this is even better. So I'm going to cast this a while. Just change it up and see if we get maybe a little different, maybe a bigger fish, or if they hit it at all. And this is the fun part about it. We're close to home. We can have a lot of fun. We can experiment. Pretty sure we're going to get our 4 fish for our fish fry and just have a good time. Boy, they're getting active out here. They're jumping like crazy. I don't know if those are trout or not. You know, there were some gentlemen that went by trolling before. They had their fly rods out here. Now, that's another great idea. You could be in the front of this nice crestliner boat. I could be fishing a fly rod and probably catching just one right after another here. They were trolling flies. They'd let their fly line out, and then they'd troll, and they were using woolly buggers. There's a bunch of lakes around here where guys do that. Sometimes they use smaller flies, but they just slowly troll the fly line behind the boat, and when they get a hit, it's a really effective way if those fish, especially, I'm starting to see rises, they're probably starting to eat some bugs. What a beautiful day out here. Springtime in the Rockies. A week ago today, we had, some places had 2 feet of snow down here. I had about a foot where I live. Now it's going to be 70 degrees today. The water is about 50 degrees. As I mentioned earlier, it's April. This is springtime fishing. Now this little lake won't be as productive for trout later on in the year when the water gets warm, at least not by the shore. There'll still be trout in here, but you'll have to probably go deeper to catch them. So hopefully we'll see. This is the time of the year, the early in the year you want to get out. These stock trout are really active in this cooler water. One of the, you know, this isn't so much about Lon Hagler though, although it's a great little lake if you do live in Colorado. Lon Hagler is located just a few miles out of Loveland, Colorado, southwest of Loveland, maybe 5-10 miles. I mean, it isn't very far. Easy to find, short drive from the Front Range of Colorado. So if you do live in that area, great lake to come to. But I'll bet that almost wherever you live in the mountain region where we air this show, that there's small lakes like this near you that most states do stock. And they provide just some great recreational fishing. You don't always have to go on the big famous bodies of water to have a good time fishing. That's the neat thing about it. Little lake like this close to home. It's Sunday today. I slept in. I've had a lot of early mornings lately. Slept in a little bit this morning. Didn't even leave the house till 11 o'clock today. We're in springtime, so the fishing is actually going to get better as the water warms up a little. You don't have to be out here now first thing. There's another one. Oh, this is so much fun. They're just not big fish, but just about the same size as the others. Just nice fish. What? Oh, I tried to lift him up. He's a little heavier. I'm afraid I'll take a chance. This is where I lose these lures because I've been casting it for several times, caught a few fish. The knot gets worn and you break them off. Nice. Oh, they kick like that. They put a hook in me. I should have pliers right here and all that. You know, it's big time professional fisherman with all the equipment, but I tend to get lax about that stuff. He's pretty played out, so he's gonna go in the frying pan for sure. We only got, getting close to a limit. I'm gonna have to give it up pretty soon, so I'm not gonna keep any more for a while probably. But, another one for the live well. I caught a whole bunch of fish in this one little area. So I thought I'd just do a different technique just to show you folks how it works. Now, I could just take, I'm gonna use this Eagle Claw Nitro dough bait. Now I could take and just put a split shot and a hook and cast it out there. Real snaggy bottom here, lots of brush where I'm at. So it's gonna get down in there and it's gonna get snagged up. So I've got it under a bobber, just a plain little 25-cent red and white bobber. I got about 2 feet of line, a split shot and a hook. And while I'm anchored up, since you can have 2 lines in Colorado, I can put this out. Now I probably don't have to do this because I'm catching so many fish anyway. But this to show you, if you have a kid with you or maybe a less experienced angler that has trouble casting, here's an alternative how you can catch some fish. And all I'm going to do is mold this paste on this hook. Just make a little ball out of it like this. Hang it under that bobber with that split shot. But you could use night crawlers, salmon eggs, and just there's any number of things under a bobber. In fact, because lakes like Lon Hagler are below 7,000 feet in Colorado, you could use live minnows. And if you hook live minnows, hook them through the back and just let them swim around under that bobber. I do that with slip bobbers all the time. It's deadly, not only for trout, but if there's bass cruising in here, you never know, you might get something else. But small little minnows you can buy at your bait store, hook through the back. But if you don't have that and you just want to go after the trout, some of this paste bait works great, like the nitro, some salmon eggs. Buy some night crawlers, hook a piece on there, some garden worms, dig them up, put them under that bobber, and you can be 12 years old again too and just catching fish. I'll tell you what, it's awesome. I've switched over to some bigger crankbait type spinners and hope to get some bigger fish. In fact, you saw me break one off, so now I have a little one. It's made by Rapala. It's got a spinner on it and a little crankbait. See if that'll do the job. See if I can't. Ooh, there goes my bobber. I put that bobber one out there, remember I told you, with the bait on it? Oh, you know what? There's something about watching another little stalker trout, but this just shows you. I had a bobber. Let's get him in before I do this. This one, put him in a live well for dinner. Little red and white bobber. But remember I told you that, ooh, barely hooked. Good thing I landed him. He's not too big, but I'm going to put him in a live well anyway. We'll get him in there. Get him in a live well real quick. Okay. And what I was fishing with that time, I had just a little red and white bobber, just like, I mean, anyone of us who have ever fished as kids fished underneath a little red and white bobber like this. And there's something still magical but watching a bobber bob in the waves. And while I was casting my other lure, I'm watching that bobber, and every time the waves go, I'm looking at it, and all of a sudden, boop, down it goes, and it's just so much fun. Hey, I'm gonna call it a day. I've been out here, just about 3-4 hours, checked out the boat, caught lots of fish. I don't even know how many I caught, well over a dozen, probably 15-20 fish, but just had a great time. But let me kind of review what we did here today, and so you can get out and enjoy places just like this. Now we're on Lon Hagler Reservoir. We're just a few miles outside of Loveland, Colorado. It's a 200-acre lake that was just stocked. Now the first thing we did is I paid attention to the stocking reports that most states will publish. I'm in Colorado, but whether you're in Wyoming or Utah, most of the time your DNR, or Division of Wildlife, will publish those so you can get a hold of them. I knew that last fall they put 25,000 catchable trout here, and they put a few in again this spring. It was really good fishing off ashore. Early in March, people were catching them right after the ice went out because these fish will get up close because that's where the lake comes to life at. Now we're about the middle of April, the water's about 50 degrees, things are starting to take off, but I knew these trout would still be shallow. The water's still within their comfort range, so I knew by going and taking the boat out and just casting things we could catch some fish. Our number one lure we used today was a little Panther Martin spinner, and I had one that was the most productive, in fact the only one I used. I used two because I broke one off that had a gold blade. It was one just like this. All I did, no magic, just cast it out. I did that on a little 5-foot ultralight rod, maybe 4.5 foot, 4-pound test line, really whippy little rod. Two reasons. One, that little light rod with 4-pound test will cast this a mile. You get a big heavy rod, you're not going to cast this very far. It's a size 4 Panther Martin. Now, a rooster tail or a Meps or a Vibrex in this size would have worked just as well. And I'm not sure the color was even that important because we had some guys in a belly boat near us that were using a rainbow colored one and they caught a bunch of trout too. This just happens to be a color that I've had good luck with, so I have a little confidence in it. So I use it quite a bit. And all we did was I either moved around the boat with my electric motor and cast up in the shoreline areas, or when I got more than one fishing area, I anchored and worked that area. That's all I would have had to do. Could have caught all the fish I wanted to. Wanted to show you a few other things. Did cast a crankbait about this size. This is a frenzy. It could have been a Rapala, small crankbait, small stick bait, and the trout will really hit this too. In fact, we were trolling from place to place and I caught one fish you didn't get to see on a lure like this that was a nice little fish. We didn't even do that on the show. But then casting it out too, I caught what I think is, I'm going to tell you, is the biggest fish of the day because we lost it. It took it, went straight down, tangled around some of the sticks. Like I said, a lot of sticks here and we lost it. But that's another lure that's very effective for trout in these kind of situations. Use those. And then of course, our bobber. You know, you got to be a kid once in a while. A little red and white bobber, a couple feet of line, a hook, and some Eagle Claw nitro bait. We were able to catch fish in that. Didn't have it out a lot, but if we wanted to, we probably could have anchored and just thrown these out. Had it under a bobber because there were a lot of sticks and brush under the water, and it would have got tangled up. If it would have been a sandy shore, a sandy bottom, I might have just thrown it out without the bobber and just let it sit. That nitro bait, then what would happen if it was in this split shot would go to the bottom, and that nitro bait would float up like this. Under the bobber, it was floating about like this. So it would float up like this off the bottom, and the trout will find it. You know, these are just, they're simple tactics. They're easy to do, and the most homework you have to do is kind of watch the stocking report. It's just a great way to get out and have a simple day fishing. You don't need a lot of sophisticated equipment. You don't need to be an expert at making presentations. Yet you can get out. We were out 4 or 5 hours today, caught a couple, a dozen or more, 20 fish, putzed with the boat, beautiful day, and just had a good time. And you can have days like this too. Remember, you don't have to drive 100 miles or go to a famous fishery. You don't have to spend $40,000 on equipment, although my sponsors would like you to. But just get out, enjoy fishing, take a kid with you, and join us next week.